Hello everyone, how are you? I hope I find you all in good health and safe and sound. I'm Arith, and today I'm going to talk about the meaning of the word rune. This might actually be one of my shortest videos ever. Well, I'm not sure yet, but we shall see. But just before we start, I take the opportunity to tell you that in this channel I have a folder entitled The Runes, where I have placed 24 videos, one for each rune of the Elder Futhark, and I have given you their meanings. But I must remind you that that folder contains the very few non-academic videos I have done. Those videos are my own interpretation of the runes, each rune, a more esoteric approach, let's say, making my own interpretations of each rune based on the historical rune poems, not just Old English and Icelandic, but also Norwegian and the Swedish rune poems, right? Picking certain historical facts as well as the study of comparative mythologies, of course, to reinforce my own claims. But overall, those videos are a lot more esoteric concerning the meaning of each rune. So I take the opportunity to tell you that since I have finished those videos, finally, I would like to jump into divination methods, so you can apply the esoteric information I've created and I've given to you concerning the runes and apply it to the divination methods, which by themselves are, of course, also esoteric. But the thing is, when I have started those rune series, I didn't have a lot of subscribers yet, nor did I know that there would be a lot of people interested in my own personal approach to the runes. After 3 years of the rune series, I realized that a couple of thousands were actually interested in those videos and what I was saying in there. So now I come to you to ask you if you want me to jump into the divination methods, or would you prefer a remake of the first videos with a lot more information? Since, well, as I said, I didn't focus too much on the first runes because I didn't know so many would actually like those series. So, remake the first rune videos or jump into the divination methods? Let me know in the comments below, if you please. Sadly, I may not have the time to reply to everyone, my apologies, but I do try to read your comments and doubts and questions. Now, today, as I said, I'm going to talk about the meaning of the word rune. This is not an esoteric video, this is an academic work which goes into a proper folder separated from the runes folder I have spoken previously. So now, with no more delay, please, let's get started. Alright, so let's try to understand the meaning and origins of the word rune as it is written in modern English like this. Rune. No, actually, sorry. Let's start from another point, the other way around, so to speak, until we get to the word rune. We have to start from the oldest surviving account where the word rune appears for the very first time, and that is actually a Christian source. The source in question is by Bishop Wulfilas, or Wulfila, the same that gave us the word heathen. I've already made a video about it for the meaning of both pagan and heathen, pagan versus heathen. As you know, when it came to spreading the word of the Bible amongst Germanic tribes during the 4th century of the Common Era, of course, the missionary bishop Wulfilas composed the Gothic Bible, translated from Greek, which gives us several words from the Gothic language, which helps us to understand not only the language itself, but also meanings and conceptions. Because, you see, certain words have no direct translation, so there must be a word that reflects the meaning of another word. And this is precisely the case of the word rune, right? It is true that the word rune is often associated with whispers and mystery and secret, which has led to the belief that a rune is a symbol or a character that has a mysterious or magic meaning. So we do need to focus on this idea of rune meaning whisper, mystery, and secret, and how we got to this idea in the first place. The Gothic Bible, apart from the runic inscriptions themselves, is the oldest surviving Germanic text. It's in this Bible that we find for the first time the words runa and garuni. Pay close attention to what I'm saying. This doesn't mean that such words did not exist before. They did in the spoken language. But how were they applied in Germanic languages, we are not certain, because its written form only appears for the first time in the 4th century in the Gothic Bible. And both the words runa and garuni come as terms, not as a direct translation of words, but as substitutes to express the meaning of certain words and ideas in Greek, and giving to it an equivalent in meaning, but in Gothic. So Bishop Wulfilau uses runa, for instance, to translate the Greek mysteria, the nominative plural form of mysterio, which means mysterion. As an example, the mysteries of the kingdom of God. Mysteries here in relation to the secrets of God, to which the Gothic translation was runa. The same way that the counsel of God is translated to runagudis. Runa in here not used to present an idea of mystery or secret, but as a word to express counsel, spoken word of advice from God. In the Gothic Bible, there are other important examples, of course, such as the use of the word runa to express a decision made by the priests to kill Jesus. And this is very important because the use of runa, the word runa in Gothic in here, to translate decision, isn't simply the translation of the word alone, but the translation of the meaning of the text. This decision is made in secret. It is a whispered decision, a secret decision. So it's the word runa that is used to express this secret decision, a decision made in whispers, because it is a secret plan to kill Jesus, and no one must hear. The word garuni, with its roots from runa, which means consultation or speech, not intended to be overheard. So the same idea from the previous example, a whispered secret speech. So I think we already have an idea of the meaning of the word runa, used to express secret speech, advice or counsel, and secrets not meant to be heard, a mystery. If we look into the Old English language, we have a word with the same etymological root, which is run, used in Old English texts to express a whisper, mystery, secret, that which is written with the idea of mystery and possibly even magic, but also the same word for a letter, a rune character of sorts. Old English run was also used to speak about letters, but we have a tiny problem here. Well, it's not a problem, but it's something important to refer. In the early Anglo-Saxon period, runes, as letters, as a written form, runiform characters, were absorbed into the Christian culture. What this means is that it is understandable why in Old English the word run, without an E in the end, not yet, but simply written with an R and a U and an. So it's understandable why it means letter, a character, because to the early Anglo-Saxon Christians, the runes were indeed letters, still a written form. Run was used to describe mystery, secret, and possibly even magic, and also the word for letters, but not yet implying that the letters themselves were magical or contained magic. Not yet. So this is what is important to take in mind. In Gothic, the word runa was used to transmit an idea of concealed counsel, whispers, mysteries of God, secrets. In Old English, it continues to transmit these same ideas directly from translations of the Bible, surely, but it also starts to be in reference to runic letters, runic characters. So this gave us an idea that the runes were magical symbols. But that isn't what is implied in here. The reason why the runes, the word run in Old English was also to express letters is because runes were still in use as a written form and were simultaneously absorbed into the Christian culture. So Anglo-Saxon Christians understood the word run to mean a letter, a character of the written form, but also to mean mysteries, secrets, and possibly magic, but not that the runic letters, the runic characters, were magic or had the magical meaning. Two separate ideas in the Old English language and within the Old English society, still. But then, of course, things changed with the coming of the Vikings, and as such, the ideas and meanings associated to the runes would also change. With the coming of the Vikings, Scandinavian pirates, people from whom runes were still associated with magic, incantation, charm, superstition, pagan belief, the Christian Anglo-Saxons and their understanding of runes completely changed. In fact, with Viking invasions upon Anglo-Saxon territory, and such Vikings being pagans and still using the runes as a written form, the word run in Anglo-Saxon ceases to have the same meaning. And in fact, medieval and modern use for the word rune with an E in the end, rune, is not from Old English. The impact of Scandinavian pagans upon Anglo-Saxon Christians was such that even the meaning of the Anglo-Saxon word run not only changed, but stopped being used. The modern English word rune, with an E at the end, doesn't have any connection, or rather, it isn't a survival of the Old English word run, with that sophisticated Christian wisdom of the Anglo-Saxons. The modern English word rune doesn't come from Anglo-Saxon run, but from a later borrowing from Norse via Latin. Old Norse translated into Latin and Latin translated into a new word that gave origins to the modern English word rune, with an E at the end. Not the same meaning as the Gothic runa or the Old English run, but now in reference to the mysteries, to the mysterious symbols of pagan magic and used by the Norse, which is why we get the idea that the runes were magic symbols, charms, incantations. It is with modern English translated from Latin, which in turn was translated from Old Norse, that it would be given to the runes a meaning of between the lines of pagan superstition, the runes being used for magic, witchcraft, as charms, as incantations. But before that, the Gothic word runa and the Anglo-Saxon run and Old Norse rune were the equivalent to whispers, secrets, a speech not meant to be overheard, and in the Anglo-Saxon case also to express a letter, a written character. Could be any letter, runic or Latin. It was just the word for letter. So I repeat, the idea of the runes being pagan magic and charms and incantations comes much later from a Latin understanding and translations of Old Norse, meaning that the idea of magic associated to the runes is also a Christian idea and not an idea shared by the pagans who used the runes. Because pagans used the runes as a written form, very few pagans. And so did continental Old Germans from the 2nd century onwards, and early Germanic Christians at least from the 4th century onwards, possibly until the 8th and 9th centuries. And in Germanic languages, such as Gothic and Old Norse and such, the words runa and run expressed secret counsel, whispers, advice, a secret not meant to be heard, murmur. So this is what possibly originally runa meant. Murmur, secret counsel, whispering, mystery, something not meant to be overheard, possibly in relation to secret and sacred knowledge. Because let's not forget also that the Gothic runa, Old English run, and Old Norse rune we can trace its roots back to the Proto-Indo-European expression found in the names of many deities, which is rau, to mutter or murmur. Rau, which gave origins possibly to Proto-Germanic runo, which in turn gave origins to Old Norse run and Old English run, both not surviving in language, as I've explained before. But it survived in Middle Dutch, rune, for instance, and Old High German runa and Gothic runa. Eventually, taking other meanings, as such words were used to translate the Greek Bible into such languages, expressing meanings similar to not only what was being expressed in the Bible itself, such as mysteries, secrets of God, counsel, and speech not meant to be overheard, but also the original meaning of runa, which was murmur, to mutter, speaking in a low voice, a whisper. So all in all, indeed, the original idea of the runa and ran and run was to express a whispered speech, a muttering speech. Only with translations from Old Norse into Latin and from Latin to a new word, which is rune in modern English, both the Old English and the Old Norse words disappeared and gave origins to the word rune with an E at the end, this time linking it to pagan magic, incantations, charms, pagan superstition. Just so we can make this clear, because I understand that certain points here might not be that clear and I might not have explained this as well as I wanted. As I said, the modern English word rune is not a survival from the Anglo-Saxon run, but instead it comes from the Latin translation of Old Norse rune. Now, this is what we must take in mind. We do not know what Old Norse rune meant for those who spoke Old Norse before Old Norse itself was translated into Latin. Probably Old Norse rune meant the same thing it meant for the Anglo-Saxons and also those who spoke Gothic, which is a whisper, a murmur, or to mutter. If we look into the Finnish language, close to those who have spoken Old Norse, we find the word runo, which is a poem. To be more specific, it used to be in reference to a canto, one of the sections into which certain long poems are divided. Not sure if in Finnish it still means the same thing nowadays. The point here is that prior to Christianity and Latin translations in Scandinavia, rune, Old Norse rune, probably meant the same as Gothic runa and Anglo-Saxon run, murmur, whispers, secrets, and written form, letters. With the translation of Old Norse run into Latin runicis, which is where the word runic of modern English comes from, but most importantly, also the Latin word runa, and this Latin translation gave origins to the modern English rune with an E at the end, and it stopped having the previous meanings, and it started to be associated with magic, also with magic, incantations, pagan superstition, charms. So, instead of a clear original meaning of being both letters, therefore a written form, and also being whispers, secrets, possibly secret knowledge, in the sense that only those educated knew how to read and write. Therefore, those who wrote with runes had the secret knowledge, because indeed only very, very few knew how to read and write. With the translation into Latin and then modern English, the idea of magic and letters were fused, creating the idea that the runes were pagan magic, pagan incantations, powerful symbols as charms. This is also a Christian perspective concerning the runes from the point of view of Christian missionaries and Christians in general who did not write with runes. And thus, this is probably the reason why early Germanic and the Anglo-Saxon Christians, who still wrote with runes, or rather still used a runiform script or inscription, stopped using that because the meaning of rune and run and rune completely changed into pagan magic. But also we must not forget that Anglo-Saxon Christians came in direct contact with the pagan Norse in Anglo-Saxon territory, due to the fact that the pagan Scandinavians still used runes to write with them. The Anglo-Saxons could not continue to do the same thing. And this is also a change of mentality, which provokes a change in language, written form, and the entire meaning of certain words, such as the Anglo-Saxon word run, that stopped being used the moment Anglo-Saxons came in contact with the Norse and made the Latin translation of runicis and runa from Old Norse run, giving it a meaning of pagan magic, incantations, and charms. And the idea of runa and run, meaning secret knowledge, isn't that far-fetched if we take into consideration that Germanic peoples did not use the runes until the 2nd century of the Common Era, as the runes to Germanic peoples were a foreigner written form, completely unknown, introduced to them by the Romans in the 2nd century of the Common Era. And the earliest runic inscriptions in Germanic cultural context are precisely after Christianity had already been introduced to Old Continental Germans, 4th century onwards. And given the fact that runes were so thoroughly absorbed into the Christian culture, the Germanic peoples that could read and write, and as such could and knew how to use the runes as a written form, were educated members of the Germanic elite. Only a few members, of course, and Germanic early Christians. Knowledge not available to everyone, but knowledge only given to very few specific members of the Germanic society. Scribes, possibly poets, Christian priests, Germanic elite educated by Christian missionaries, and by the Bible translated into Gothic, the Greek Bible into Gothic. Therefore, these specific and very, very few members of the Iron Age Germanic societies, they held secret knowledge, the knowledge of the written word, the knowledge of the runes. Therefore, runa and ran and run, and such other Germanic words, meant secret knowledge, the mysteries, secrets, the knowledge only available to some with privilege. If we take a look at the development of the English language, we notice that in the early 8th century, the Anglo-Saxon word run was still in use, and it meant counsel or consultation. The same idea expressed in Bishop Wulfila's Bible in the 4th century of the Common Era. Gothic runa also meaning counsel. Then, more or less by the end of the 8th century and throughout the entire 9th century, appears the Old English form rune, but as a continuation of run, meaning a letter. In the 10th century, run is also used to express a secret or mystery, as Wulfilas had already expressed as well in the 4th century. And then finally, in the 12th century, modern English presents us rune, translated from the Latin runici, which meant utterance, whisper, murmur, message, associated with pagan magic, and from the Latin word runa as well. The use of runic script for charms and incantations. And in the 13th century, the modern English word rune is also to denote song and poem, finally. So there's a very long development of the word rune, or until it becomes rune, as we know it nowadays. And I think it will also be useful to express another possible meaning for rune. We must not forget that the Anglo-Saxons did call a letter, a written character, as run. And this comes from Saxon tradition, namely from rin and ran, both having similar meanings. The word ran is a cut or a channel of water, while the word rin signifies a furrow in the earth opened up by a plow for agriculture. The Saxons named their runiform characters, or their runic letters as a written form, as you will, they named them run, runes, possibly from ran and rin, opening up the earth to create a channel for water and for planting, respectively, giving it a similar meaning to the runiform they were using, carving the runes. Carving. The runes were carved possibly on wood, just the same way the earth was carved, so to speak. Cutting or carving the earth the same way one cuts or carves runes on wood, a smoother surface. And this is something I find really, really interesting and curious because, as you know, the runes were introduced to Germanic peoples by the Romans in the 2nd century of the Common Era. The Romans spoke Latin, and there is a curious Latin word which is runcina, which is specifically a plane, the tool for shaping wood by cutting over the wood's surface, carving the wood. So in this way, the words ran and rin, which was to carve the ground, open up the ground with a plow, and such words giving origins to the Anglo-Saxon run, this might come from the Latin as well, from runcina, this idea. Runcina, the tool that carves on wood, the same way you would carve runes on wood, since the runes were introduced to the Germanic peoples by the Romans. And the Germanic peoples did not yet have the custom to write on stone, but instead to carve on wood. And this is possibly when they have started to write runes on wooden surfaces, carving them, just as the tool runcina carves wood, and just as the same way you carve the ground either for channels of water or for agriculture. Ran and rin. Alright, my dear friends, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful. Don't go away just yet. By the end of this video, I will show you a board with the evolution of the meaning of since Proto-Indo-European Rao and various other languages until we reach both the Anglo-Saxon run and the modern English rune. And I will also show you the bibliography I have used to compose this video, so you can check for yourself if you want to continue the study of the meaning of the word rune. So, thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video. And as always, tack för idag. Thanks for today.